that like this. How's that work? Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
All right, great. Thank you everybody for coming. My name is Megan Lovelace. I am happy to be the chair of the Public Policy Chamber. And we're very excited to have our new council members here with us today. And love having the crowd. This is our first in-person meeting of 2022 and really appreciate the turnout and everyone coming here. Really appreciate the Richmond County Library staff. They're always so attentive here, opening the place up early for us and making this great space available. So thank you to the Richmond County Library and their staff. Before we get started, we're going to talk a little bit about a different change in format in our past events, which I was talking to Ms. Herbert last time she was here, and Dr. Bussells. We had our issues forum with our potential candidates. So we're going to do something a little different this time, given the size of the audience. Instead of waiting towards the end to ask questions, I'm going to allow audience questions intermittently as I go through some of the questions here in the section in the form we have put together. So without further delay, we'd love to welcome Dr. Bussells, Ms. Herbert, and Mr. Taylor. And we're very happy to have you all as our new members here on Columbia City Council. I'm going to start with Dr. Bussells. If you'd like to take a couple minutes to introduce yourself, tell everybody a little bit about yourself and your background, that'd be perfect.
I think most of you are familiar with me, but I'm Aditi Bussells. I am an epidemiologist. This was not in the plan, but very excited to be representing my city and the community that I care about. I come from a background in child health, public health specifically, and I thought it was really important in a time that we need to make critical decisions to advance our city, make it more competitive, keep young people here, and most importantly, ensure that we are a city that is safe and is a city that's a destination for everyone, that we needed somebody with my perspective, someone who understands data, someone who understands how to connect the dots between several sectors. Oftentimes on the campaign trail, I'd say, I'm going to show you what it means to be pro-business and pro-public health, and I think I showed you all exactly that. Because without the well-being of our businesses and our competitiveness being where it needs to be, we don't have the revenue to solve the various problems that are affecting our city, whether it is bringing in grocery stores or ensuring that our sidewalks are walkable or making sure that people have opportunities and our schools are doing well. So I'm very excited to be representing the entire city as the at-large member and look forward to working with my colleagues on the city council to address some of the critical challenges that we are seeing, particularly around economic development, people development, and making sure that Columbia is a flourishing and vibrant city. I live in historic Irwood, big fan of District 1, so excited to work with Tina on a lot of different initiatives on our side of town. And my husband is prior Army, and he's a frontline provider. He's the ER nurse at Providence, now MUSC. And I am a proud dog mom for now. So we have 2 dogs, and you will often see us at Soda City or on the lake enjoying all of the great assets that Columbia has to offer. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Herbert.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Tina Herbert, and I am the District 1 representative for City Council. I can agree with Aditi that was not in the plans, but the Lord leads you in a way and you go ahead and follow it. I am proud to particularly represent District 1 because it is the district that I was born and raised in, and I've been there my entire life, with the exception of when I went to college and law school. I tell folks that I can walk to my parents, and my mom is here, just so y'all know. My mom is my biggest cheerleader, and I'm trying to keep her from just coming from city council meetings, but I can walk. It's less than a mile to my parents' first apartment, and I can walk to my 97-year-old grandmother's home from my house. So District 1 is just where I've been, and it's what I know and what I understand. But it's also where I know we need a lot of help. And I think that I'm in tune to the issues that are in our community. And between my private sector experience and working for the city in the OBO office and community development and learning how to leverage city dollars to bring private dollars to certain areas, I think is very critical and is an asset that we need, particularly in District 1. So I look forward to working in those areas, helping out our small businesses, dealing with all of the critical issues. I agree with Aditi that we have tons of critical issues But competitiveness is, of course, something that's key to my heart just by nature. I don't think any of us would be up here if we weren't competitive. And my daughter, I used to tell her, I went to Richland 1. I graduated from Keenan High School. My daughter, I made her go to Keenan High School because if it was good enough for your mama, it is good enough for you. But I still had to tell her I wasn't impressed that she could compete with other students at Keenan. I needed her to compete with kids in China and across this country, across the world. And so I want to make sure that we're continuing to work, that we instill that same competitiveness in our children, in our youth, and as we grow and develop.
Great, thank you. Mr. Taylor.
Thank you, Macon. Delighted to be here. I'm honored to be up here with a PhD and a lawyer, and the only representing all the country boys in South Carolina.
It's hard to, that's
I was the Secretary of Commerce under Mark Sanford for I guess, 2005 to 2011. Built a successful business here. I've long felt that the business community we weren't as business friendly as we should. I think we've missed a lot of the growth that we've seen in our state over the last 10 years. And frankly, came to the conclusion that local governments probably affect your day-to-day life more than about any other level of government. And if I wanted to make a contribution to Columbia, run for city council probably would be the best way I could do it. There's three things in the city of Columbia that I want to make sure we address. I mean, I want to make sure we have the best public safety that possibly exists, because public safety is the cornerstone of all economic development. Look at our city, the neighborhoods that flourish are those that are recognized as safest, and we need to make sure that all of our neighborhoods and commercial districts are known to be safe. Our taxes are too high on apartments, rental homes, and small business. I mean, we're 48% higher today than Charleston, 38% higher than Greenville, and 28% higher than across the river. We got to do something about that if we're going to attract more than one crane every 10 years downtown. And last is education. I think we just need to address the schools in the city of Columbia. I don't care whether you live in the best neighborhood or the least neighborhood. Everyone deserves to go to a very fine public school. And so those are my three key things. I think you've already seen the work of our new council. I'm looking at these ladies, and Mayor recommend. I can't imagine there have ever been council people who work as hard as these folks have. I mean, getting up to speed, learn how things operate. It's a different day. And what I think excites me more than anything else is seeing this crowd this morning. Because if we're going to be a great city, everybody's got to get in the game. It can't be just insiders. It's got to be everybody. Because great cities are built from the bottom up, not the top down. And we need to have that theory here today that a rising tide does lift all boats. And even though I'm the District 4 representative, my number one concern to help District 4 is to help the city grow and make sure the opportunities are here for your children and grandchildren like they were for me when I finished high school here 40 years ago.
Great, thank you. Sticking with you, Mr. Taylor, we were talking about, one of my first questions was, what was the biggest challenge y'all saw in the city? I think all of y'all have outlined that, your concerns for running. So I will pivot and say, what do you deem as the biggest opportunity for the city right now?
I think sometimes, so there's an old saying, never let a crisis go without, some kind of opportunity. And I really think we're very well positioned for the future here. We've not experienced, and maybe you being a real estate professional, I think you'll really understand where I'm coming from. We haven't seen the property appreciation in Columbia, South Carolina, like other areas have. And as we're going into what this next phase of our American economy is, when the fee developers, people who come bring new capital into a community, are looking at where they're going to go next, and they see Charleston's prices have gone through the roof, and Greenville's and Charlotte's as well. I think if we have our entitlement process fixed and we're working on our taxes, I think we're in an unbelievable good position today to really take advantage of what I think are going to be some higher interest rates as we go forward. And I know that sounds pessimistic and optimistic at the same time, but that's where I think we're pretty well positioned to do that. If we can get the blocking and tackling right.
Great, perfect. Ms. Herbert, same question. What do you see as the biggest opportunity for the city?
I think the city as a agency, as well as several of the employers here in the audience, this is really a big opportunity for us to redefine and look at how we're going to handle our workforce. I think, what is the number out, 600 agencies? We are in a season where everyone that I know, most places are having problems in hiring people. And this is a great opportunity, I believe, for us to look at our wages, incentives, how we work. I think we have to look at more flexibility because the last 2 years has truly redefined our workers. I know business owners who are struggling to hire the same people that they used to have before. I have family members that I can't seem to get to go to work because if it's not exactly what they want, it's the millennials. But you know, it's not. Oh, I'm sorry. But no, I'm very honest. So the same people 2 years ago that we could, that you could say, come and do this until you find. I found her saying, no, that's below me. I know my worth, I know my value, and I'm not going to do it at all. So we are, I think, in a private sector city, this is a great opportunity for us to really look at our workforce, how we treat our workforce, what options we give our workforce so that we can get the work done that needs to be done. And I think that we're going to have to reimagine some things because, it's been 2 years and folks just aren't coming back the way they did. So I think that is a big opportunity for us across the nation, really, because it's just not a Columbia issue. It's an issue everywhere.
I agree. Dr. Bussells, same question.
So I would actually take it back to the idea of the millennials and how they are redefining the workforce and what is next. I am the only millennial on city council. There's actually a 43-year difference between me and the oldest council member, and I think that that's an asset. We're thinking about problems in different ways. And when I think about the way the millennial workforce or the age group of people that are having families, they are starting to settle in, figure out, where they want to settle their roots or create a business or, call home, that's that age group. And what we've learned through COVID is that a lot of them are leaving cities that are of higher cost of living. They want to use their money for things that matter in their life. You're starting to see a better work-life balance. So for example, I recently made the shift from the government sector to private. I work for Deloitte. My team is out in DC. The closest office to me is in Charlotte, but I chose to stay here, right? And that model is something that a lot of cities similar to our size are looking to do. They call it this idea of a Zoom town. We'll fly you out to those big cities, but keep your money here because the quality of life here is amazing. And that's what I think is the biggest opportunity in Columbia is that we have a lot of great assets that make this the best place to live. We are easily accessible to big cities that have headquarters that we can take advantage of and help our workforce get to when needed. But models are shifting. I think we need to take advantage of this remote work opportunity, have young people stay here because when they stay here, their money stays here, revenue comes in here, and wealth is created here. And I think that is really what we need to look at doing over the next several years to ensure that Columbia stays on the map as a gem in the South that's accessible to so many different places.
Great, thank you. And Dr. Bussells, staying with you, Mayor Rickman is coined the phrase, the city is open for business. What exactly does that mean to you, and how are you coupled with that initiative?
I think it goes back to what Councilman Taylor said is, yes, we are open for business, but we are also open to new ideas, new people getting involved. One thing that we often saw on the campaign trail is we energized a new group of people that, for me, there were folks that had never been engaged in local politics. They didn't understand the significance added on its life. And when I think of the phrase, we are open, I think about how this council has been very open to understanding and recognizing that there are multiple perspectives, multiple solutions to an issue. And it is our job to bring those perspectives together and create sustainable solutions that lead to long-term impact. So I often resonate with when he says we are open, but we are also open to ideas. We're open to new people coming in. We're open to new ways of doing things. And I think that's the most exciting thing about this era of city council.
Sir, same question.
I think it means a lot of things. With respect to our business practices at the city, I think that we're open means that Mr. Rickerman or Mayor Rickerman, as well as a lot of the folks who come from private sector, are really going to put a big emphasis on the city being, as Joe said earlier, being open and our customer service, I guess I should say, for our business folks and people who do business with the city, and trying to make it as easy as possible to accomplish what folks need to accomplish. We're open, and we're open. We want you to come, and we're going to treat you as best as we can, and really help you by being problem solvers, not problem creators. Can I say that? So I think that's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is with the coronavirus, we really do have to, and I think that you see it across the nation, transition to this is where we are, folks. And that we do have to find a way to maintain our businesses and to maintain our operations and stop going into crisis modes with everything that happens. So to me, it means both of those things. And then I guess the last thing is, and we're open to anyone and everyone. So we're not just for a certain group of people, but we're for everyone, but no matter where you live, no matter what type of service you're trying to get from the city. But we are here with open arms and here to serve.
Mr. Taylor?
I mean, for too long, we've been a city of cans. And we have to become a city of cans. I mean, it took 7 years for this crane behind me to be permitted. That's just not acceptable. I mean, you know, we can stop things better than any other city in America. You know, we kind of what I think the mayor's saying is we're open for business for the first time in quite some time. I mean, I had a gentleman sitting in my office the other day that wants to build a hotel in Columbia. He's been going through the DDRC process for almost 2 years now. I mean, this is a game changer project of where he's going to build it. You know, our codes department added about $400,000 to the cost of it. We can't do that anymore. We're competing. I mean, as Herbert said it best, I mean, we compete today for new investment, for new capital here. And we have to make the process easier. We have to be more welcoming. We have to be more business friendly. And again, I said this earlier. I was able after college to come to Columbia and build the biggest company of its kind in the world here. I don't think I could build it here today. And we got to change that. We got to make sure your children, your grandchildren, your brothers and sisters all have the best opportunity here that they would have anywhere else in the world to be successful. And that's what we're after. And then when I hear the mayor say we're open, I hear we're open for business.
Thank you. I'm gonna stay with you. This is my chance as a panelist to tweak some of the questions, but we're talking about workforce development and challenges. I hear two sides of it in my industry. One is that we have a very good labor pool here in Columbia compared to the upstate in Charleston, where there's been a lot of competitive manufacturing businesses gone there. So there's an opportunity there. The other side of that is our inability to retain professional jobs in downtown compared to other cities. So the questions for the larger group, starting with the former Secretary of Commerce, would love his perspective on, you know, I guess one, the opportunity with labor markets compared to other parts of the state and challenges retaining professionals here in the city.
Well, first off, you have to be able to tell your story. And I don't think we've done a very good job of that. We have 5,800 college graduates in this market every year. And I would tell you, if I were the Secretary of Commerce today, I'd be out recruiting for companies who are struggling to fill their employee pool. I'd be sending the message: we got the talent. You know, we need to come here. Again, I don't want to sound like I'm beating on the dead horse, but you got to make it easy for people to invest here. So, you know, for companies to come here. I mean, and that's what we've got to fix. And we are blessed when it comes to recruiting these companies. We're blessed that we not only just have the Columbia labor shed, but we have other labor sheds. I did the Amazon deal in Lexington when I was the Commerce Secretary. I'll never forget telling Fred Keegan, you know, if everybody remember, it used to be in the Christmas holiday season, Amazon would have these huge campgrounds and people coming in to take those jobs. It's not something that we really wanted to see here. And I promised Mr. Keegan that if he came here, that we had the labor force to respond to it. Today, that Amazon has more employees than any other Amazon DC in the country, and they've never had a campground. I mean, so I think we got the talent. It's just a matter, and we can retain the talent. but we gotta get out in this country. We gotta tell people what Columbia is. Unfortunately, today, think about it. You gotta come over Charlotte or over Greenville or over Charleston to get here. So we got to go, we gotta change our whole modus operandi and we gotta go get it now.
Ms. Herbert, same question about workforce development, challenges, opportunities.
I think that my millennial experience, I'm sorry, because I live it every day. One thing that we cannot underestimate is the importance of quality of life. So folks can have a job, you know, that's a given, but then what are they doing on the weekends? What are they doing after work? Are there places to go to eat? Is there entertainment? Back in my day, you know, I was just like, go to work and go home. That is not what folks are looking for now. They're really looking for quality of life things. So this, I think, presents another opportunity to make sure we have those things that attract people, because people really are looking for better quality of life. It wasn't even a thing back in my day. With quality of life, we just want to work and pay bills, but the new generation is looking for a lot more. I think the other thing goes back to affordable housing, because even if you get a good job, you don't want to spend all of your money, particularly for, you know, our 30-year-olds. You don't want to end up spending all of your money to be in what I call very good quality housing. And then you're spending all your money. So folks want to go different places. So quality of life and the ability for us to make sure that they have opportunities to do things outside of just the job, as well as affordable housing, I think are key things that we have to address.
Great. Dr. Bussells, same question.
I would say oftentimes we use the term retain talent. I think going back to what Councilman Taylor said is we have the talent. We just don't have the jobs to fill them, and jobs that turn into careers where there are trajectories beyond staying in a job for 2 to 3 years, because on average, that's how long we want to stay in our job. We want to try new things. That gone are the days of staying in a job for 25 plus years. And that type of movement is just not possible in Columbia right now. So while the city can lead on helping make it be easier to do business here, we need partners like you all to help us sell our story, make sure that our brand is visible in conversations that you all are having. This isn't something that we can continue to do alone, nor should we do alone, because we'll stay right where we are, which is that we get passed over every single day. In terms of what we can lead on, again, is ensuring that our brand is consistent. Our city is accessible. We're telling our story in a way that people resonate with it, that you don't have to know particular jargon or be the right person to navigate the different folks working on different projects related to economic development. But again, it goes back to our business community stepping up and saying, we're going to help you and put our city on the map, because all of us will benefit when more business comes into the city.
Great, thank you. All right, we're going to take audience questions. If you'd like to step up, anybody at this point, or we can go into the next round of questions. Yes, ma'am.
Question is maybe a little far-fetched, but just in listening at you all talk about economic development, labor force, and attracting new businesses. As we all know, there's a lot of people moving into this city, and hopefully with the city in mind. What kind of due diligence will you all put in place to ensure that the businesses that are moving here don't just come to capitalize on our resources, our people, and those things, and indeed come to improve the quality of life?
Mr. Taylor, go ahead.
Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of people moving into the city of Columbia. Our population growth for the last 10 years has been fairly stagnant. The suburbs, on the other hand, you know, are a city of growth. I mean, I hate to say this, you know, Richland District 1 has seen a decline in student population over the last 10 years. Richland 2 exploded. So that's what, so to address that, and again, the interesting thing for the three of us is we all just came through a campaign. So we heard what all across Columbia, you know, what people had to say, and what I think y'all will agree with me. People said we want jobs that have promotion, you know, the ability to rise up in, and we want more things to do. I mean, you know, I touched on it, and I think what we've got to be cognizant of when it comes to, the economic development side is we have to recognize we're in an urban area. Everybody in the state of South Carolina wants to recruit an airplane manufacturing plant or something like that. Well, guys, we're never going to put an airplane manufacturing plant on Main Street. It's not going to happen. So we need to focus on urban things. I mean, truth be told, if you went out and we were able to go recruit more national restaurants or things like that to downtown Columbia, I think it would help our city grow. Mayor Riley perfected that in Charleston. I mean, the restaurants are what he built first when he became mayor. More things to do, more activities. You know, how do we do that? We get our technical colleges here engaged with a hospitality school. I mean, you know, we're not training restaurant professionals here. And I'm saying they're the highest paid jobs in the world, but I can tell you, if you're an engineer, you can get a job today. You know, it's again, it's those maybe sometimes on the lower end of the scale, but we need to be recruiting urban things. We need to be again recruiting capital. University of South Carolina is going to build a new medical school on Bull Street. Do we do it the old fashioned way, which is beg the General Assembly for the money, or do we go into the private equity market and do it on a capital lease and make it something special that's a real catalyst for downtown? I mean, I think the message there is we just have to look at things different than we did for the last 10 years. And I'm a little concerned that it's a little bit more of a push to get to that new look than I thought it would be. So I think that's it. We got the people. Again, we got to go sell it. And I think as a city, we've got to do a better job of engaging our commercial real estate community, you know, and having them go sell it. Because sometimes, man, when you stand on Main Street and you yell as loud as you can, the people in New York don't hear it. You got to go yell in New York a little bit.
And I did mean around the city.
I understand.
Yeah.
But again, I'm glad you brought that up because I think it's something that we need to be cognizant of. I mean, you know, I mean, I would tell you there's three things that can destroy a city, and that's high taxes, schools, and fear. And we got to address those things if we want to grow our urban core. And again, I think we got a pretty good team now on city council that's ready to tackle all those. And I think, again, I would yield to Tina next on this. I think we saw all throughout the campaign that people in Columbia, they think we can do better than we've done. And they want to get engaged and they want to make this as great a city as it can possibly be.
I agree, and I want to make sure that going back to the essence of that question, making sure, I think a lot of folks think we can do things that we can't do. Okay, and so if there is a private business purchase that has nothing to do with the city of Columbia, i.e., they don't have to come through us for anything. Okay. Then it's very hard for us to say that we're going to insure anything. Do you understand what I'm saying? I was just talking to someone about an issue that they had with a particular purchase of a location. And we're looking at, well, are there any exceptions that they're going to need from the city? Because that puts it in front of the purview of the city, or is the city making an investment in that particular property? So going back to your question, you know, I get a lot of questions. Why did you all let XYZ buy ABC? And I said, because they sold it to them. You know, I mean, just to be fair, there are certain things that we just can't control. But then when we can, we try and make sure that if there are any investments in a particular property or a particular project, that we get some assurances with it. But I think people would be surprised at how much the city does not have to do with a lot of private deals that happen and a lot of the resources that come. I hope that kind of answers your question.
And I would just add, you know, going back to kind of, I think what you were asking is, there are plenty of opportunities, and I've actually found that Columbia welcomes the perspectives of all of our neighborhoods that often have opinions on different developments and you know, issues around the city. And I think there's a lot of great infrastructure in place. I know that, you know, Tina and I have already started going to a lot of different neighborhood meetings to continue to hear and listen. And I think that's what we can do, is to make sure that we are present where constituents are at. And listen to their concerns and help clarify, like she mentioned, what we do have purview over and what we don't. and help kind of bridge that harmony between development and our neighborhood. Sometimes I think we're our own worst enemy, and we start to assume things that really aren't the case, and it just requires a conversation. And I think as city council members, we can be that ambassador between those two perspectives.
I see some more questions out there. If y'all wouldn't mind, I'll come back to you. We've got to stay on script, and these folks have been very nice to offer their time. So I'll come back to you, but I will try to go to the next section of questions. I'll ask each member to spend 3 minutes on this. This is going to be not a roundtable, but specific to your new assignments as committee chairman with the city council. And we're going to start with Dr. Bussells. You're assigned the task force to prevent and homelessness. What are your initial thoughts and plans?
Oh, this just happened 2 weeks ago. So we are just beginning to put our task force together. And the goal is, since it is a mayor's task force, we'll be submitting a report with recommendations, hopefully by September this year. So about 6 months after the task force was first formed. And for me, looking at it from a public health perspective, there is no single solution for why homelessness exists in our city, or how we can prevent it or end it, right? There are a lot of socioeconomic factors, there are a lot of contextual environmental factors that have to be considered. And so I'm excited to bring people together. So this task force will be comprised of neighborhood presidents, CPD, community leaders, as well as my colleagues, Councilman Taylor and Councilman Brennan, to really, I'm sorry, not Councilman Taylor, Councilman McDowell, to really look comprehensively about what's working, what's not, and what we can do. Homelessness ultimately, for a business perspective, is linked very much to public safety. When you look at the research and the data, many people that are homeless, not all, but many, experience mental illness, substance misuse, addiction. And because of that, there is a higher likelihood that they may engage in crime. And we're seeing that, whether it's panhandling, whether it's making people feel unsafe in our entertainment districts. And so, as it was said today, public safety is a cornerstone. It is the core of what the government should be providing for all of its citizens. And so that's really the perspective that I'm bringing in addition to being compassionate. We have to balance the needs of our city's safety and the needs of our neighbors experiencing homelessness. And so I'm looking forward to taking that nuanced approach, looking at different data points, looking at different ways in which we can improve our entertainment districts, improve public safety, but also ensuring that all of the various homeless providers in our city are talking to each other, making sure there's a spectrum of services available, and ensuring that we are doing right and providing the supports that people experiencing homelessness need.
Thank you for your answer. Ms. Herbert, you're on the Affordable Housing Task Force. I know that you were recently assigned to that, but can you give us an overview of what your plans are going to be there, and what your goals are in the first year of being on that committee?
Yes, and I will say, actually, this is an assignment that I volunteered for. But I volunteered for, I've watched the meetings, and the Affordable Housing Task Force started meeting last year, I believe in February, and I've been watching the meetings. But I have a particular interest in it because of the stigma of quote unquote affordable housing. And I think that in the city of Columbia, well, probably nationwide, we really have to look at the stigma associated with it, because I used to live in public housing. I used to have a Section 8 voucher. And it was for a limited time to help me through law school. And then I got to the point where I could no longer, I didn't qualify for public housing or affordable housing or Section 8. And I think that is what it is intended for in a lot of instances. And so if we can, number one, look at the stigma for those who are transitioning and need the assistance of affordable housing, but then realize that we have people making $50,000 who need housing that is affordable, but it's not public housing, if y'all understand what I'm saying. And I think that my biggest worry about the city of Columbia right now is that a lot of people who live here now will not be able to afford to live here in 10 or 20 years. And those are not folks who need public assistance or anything like that, but they're going to be priced out of the market. So I think it's very critical, if we want to keep the diversity that we have in the city, that we have good quality, affordable housing. And we need both rental stock and we need home ownership. It's very critical that our rental stock is such that we're setting people up for the ability to be able to save so that they can purchase. If they're spending all of their money on their rent, they'll never be able to move to the next level. So that is near and dear to me. And so that's why I chose that. They have been meeting for a year. I would like to put a bow on all the work that they have done and to acknowledge the work that they've done over the year. And then come to city council with a proposed plan of how we will move forward.
Thank you. Mr. Taylor, you're on the tax modernization committee and chair, and obviously, anybody that read the state paper last year, you had a great series of articles regarding Dr. Gunzlogg's recommendations in the tax study. So where are you going to take that? How are you going to use that to impact economic development and improve the city?
Well, the mayor formed a new task force this year. I think Councilman Brennan and I are both on it, and right? It's a guy. Like I said, we haven't met yet, but here, the bottom line is, and it's a great segue from the affordable housing and the rental deal again. And I see folks from all around West Columbia and everywhere else, just to put it in perspective. In Richland County, it takes 3 months rent to pay the property tax. In Lexington too, it takes 3 weeks rent to pay the property tax. So if we're going to attack affordable rental, we're going to have to deal with our property tax rates here. Plus, the same thing when we compete with new investment. I mean, think about it. A factory can come here, located in Fairfield or Calhoun County, pay significantly less property taxes. The workforce reside in Columbia. We have the education costs, the police costs, the fire costs, but none of the factory tax revenue. And so we've got to put ourselves in a position to compete. Unfortunately, the taxes are all controlled really by Richland County Council, but somebody's got to take a leadership position on it. And I think I applaud Mayor Rickman for doing that. And I think bringing Dr. Stephen Walters in last year, as well as the other 2 economists, I think we've now moved beyond the discussion of taxes, whether property taxes are a problem or not, to the new discussion is how do we fix it. And I don't think it's going to be easy, but I will tell you there is a way to do it. Dr. Gunzlog and Dr. Walters have worked on a plan that doesn't raise anybody else's taxes. I think that has to be the litmus test of our tax reform. And again, and it took us 2 decades to get here. It's going to take a decade to fix it, but we're going to take it head on, and hopefully we'll probably have our first committee meeting in the next 2 weeks, and shortly thereafter, put a solution on the table that we can begin to debate instead of arguing whether it's a problem.
Great, perfect, thank you. We'll take one question from the crowd on any subjects of this committee, members that are out here. I see Jeff.
Thank you, Maggie. My name is Jeff Griffin. I have a business on Shop Road. I employ about 120 guys. We are, I just wanted to talk with Dr. Bussells on the homelessness sort of law enforcement issue. I understand we're about 60 policemen short on the force. I would like to ask what y'all plan to do about shoring that up. Also, I see, as I drive around town, I see different encampments. There's one under I-77 at Garner's Ferry. Excuse me, and there's one, several on Forest Drive at the Walmart area. It's a breeding ground for panhandling. That's against the law as far as I understand. I've been approached several times. I'm sure everybody else here in this town has been approached. It's very frustrating and irritating. And I'd like to know what maybe you guys have planned to address those issues.
Yeah, a couple of things. So today, actually, we'll be taking a vote on a new initiative created called the Pathways Initiative, in which we will be funding a mental health clinician to be a part of our critical response teams in our entertainment districts, where we've seen the most of that. That doesn't mean that homelessness isn't affecting other parts of the city, but that is, and we believe, one way to allow the police to do their job, and for mental health clinicians and those that are educated and de-escalating mental health crises to be a part of the solution when it comes to law enforcement and interacting with our persons experiencing homelessness. So that'll happen today at our Tuesday meeting. We're very excited to start the steps towards doing that. And it's modeled off of a lot of other cities that have found success in using that approach, allowing, again, police to do their job. I think because of the shortage, you've had our police doing so many different roles, and that's just not sustainable. As I'm sure you've also heard, we've been working on refining our hiring practices across the city. We've started to see a lot of our positions be filled in public works. We're hoping to see more positions be filled in public safety. you know, the workforce shortage is not a Columbia specific problem. We've seen that across the board. Some people are leaving law enforcement simply because they just don't want to do it anymore, right? So that's a challenge that we're gonna have to continue to face, but this council has been very committed to looking at different ways to recruit and retain our public safety workforce. We've all talked about this, I believe, on the campaign trail about what we need to do to ensure that our police officers are well resourced, they have equipment, they have updated fleet. So you'll start to see some of those changes come over the next several months as we are going through the budgeting process and looking at ways in which we can support that. In terms of panhandling and encampments, these are again things that we have continued to look at from a public safety perspective. And there's been a lot of work that has begun behind the scenes to start to address and enforce some of the things that you've talked about in terms of panhandling being illegal. And as we continue to kind of simultaneously deal with the workforce challenge, we're hoping that we're able to then continue to enforce some of these ordinances that have been on the books that we simply haven't had the capacity to enforce. So I hear you in your frustration. I don't think that anybody should feel unsafe in any part of this city, but the reality is that there's a lot of work to do in order to address that.
Ms. Herbert, Mr. Taylor, give you all the opportunity if you want to address that as well, or if you'd like to move on to the next question. Be happy to do that.
No, I think the only thing I would say was I was in Charlotte the other weekend, and when I got to the intersection going into a neighborhood, I saw panhandlers. And forgive me, I haven't been traveling as much due to COVID. And so I realized that the problems that we have here, that people have them everywhere. And so we need to use our best efforts to benchmark and see what other cities are doing as well. But it's not anything that's unique to Columbia. We're seeing it everywhere. And making sure that we have I was just studying this, making sure that we have a compassionate way to deal with folks who are in these situations. Not that we give them a pass, but that we deal with them compassionately, I think is very important as well.
Real quick, we have 101 open sworn officer positions at the City of Columbia Police Department. We don't have a money problem. Okay, we need to address, and we don't have a hiring problem. We have a retaining problem. And we need to address, what we need to address is our pay bands for our 2 and 3 and 4 and 5-year officers. I don't understand, frankly, why we haven't done that. We're pushing it as hard as we can push it right now. I think the city manager clearly understands that's an issue that we have to address. And because having that type of vacancy is not acceptable. I don't think anybody up here would agree with that, number one. Number two, I just add to what Dr. Bussells was saying. Later today, we will take ARA money, American Rescue Act. President Biden cleared that for use and in any anti-crime efforts and such. And we will vote today to input or put into each police area a mental health / social worker professional whose job will be when the police respond to homeless folks, to respond with them. Sheriff Lott has done this program very successfully. And frankly, to get their homeless off the streets, to end the encampments. And if we can't get those folks off the street, then we might have to put the home back in homes and help them get back to their hometown. Because we have a responsibility to take care of our own. But I'm not so sure as a city, we have the responsibility to carry the social cost and the burden for everyone. And so, again, like Mrs. Herbert said, we're going to take a tough love approach. Love will be a big part of it, but tough's got to go in there too. Because, again, we're having situations now, whether it's in the Walmart on Interstate 77 or on Main Street or 5 Points or down in the Vista, or even on Harbison Boulevard now, where this is impacting neighborhoods and it's impacting commerce. And I think you'll see Dr. Bussells and Mayor Rickman call, I see several homeless providers in the room, call the homeless providers together. And we're just going to have to take a unified approach of how we're going to deal with this. We cannot, again, we just can't let it continue like it has been. We have to find a better way, for everybody, a better way for the homeless and a better way for our businesses and a better way for our citizens. But again, if you have a chance and you run it, and we all need to make it clear. And I think the three of us heard it. Public safety is the #1 issue. And God, I hate to say this. We haven't had a murder in Columbia since January 1st. I mean, I think everybody's getting the message now. The reason I hate to say it is because I don't want to change our luck, unfortunately, but I really do think this is all moving in a really good direction.
And then one thing I did want to add too is it cannot be lost that the pressure that police officers have been up under, and this is not a political statement one way or the other, over the last 2 years has really caused problems in the police departments across the country. We have folks, in addition to the pay issues that we have, those pay issues, I think, really changed over the last 2 years. But the other part is we have people retiring early because they're like, hey, I can find something a little bit easier to do than this level of pressure. The other thing is I was volunteering with some youth kids, they're like 5, 6 years old. And one little boy says, I want to be a police officer. And the other little boy says, why do you want to be a police officer? You want to get shot. And so these are 4 and 5-year-olds who used to grow up wanting to be police officers. So we have to find a way to help restore public trust in police officers if we want to be able to recruit them. And I say that having been a public defender, so I've been on both sides, but at the end of the day, I think we all agree that if something happens, we want to be able to call 911 and have an officer to respond. So I think that is something that city council, we have to help with. We need citizens to help with. And it's not a perfect system, but we do have to begin working on restoring the public's confidence in our police officers. Because if little boys who are 4 and 5 are no longer wanting to be police officers, I mean, what is the issue? I mean, what is it going to look like in 20 years?
Folks, we have about 15 minutes left, and I had about 6 more questions to ask on my list. But guess what I'm going to do? I appreciate everybody being here. It's the biggest crowd we've had. I see a lot of hands out there, so I'm going to throw away my script, and I'm going to go with you in the back, and just be mindful. I know that everybody wants to ask as many questions as possible. I've got a hard stop for them in 15 minutes. Not only are they public servants, they also have jobs and responsibilities and places to be. So if I cut anybody off, I apologize. I'm just trying to keep them in order and get them to where they need to be after this. Please go ahead.
I want to say that I'm a retired nurse for 30 years. I work over at the Lexington Medical Center, and one of our biggest problems is always homeless and drug seekers. But we could never throw them out as nurses and doctors in the name of we got other lives to save. We had to address their issues as well. And so the biggest thing to do, Dr. Kilpatrick, we want to call him, he did some free college money for students to be able to take advantage of. I heard him say several things about the shortage of workers. Maybe if we could get these people medicated, a lot of them are not medicated, they don't have sustainable homes, mentally they're not able to care for their financial monies that they're getting from different places. There's a whole lot of things that factor into that. But I'd like to say that we need to find, like me, I've got donated, somebody bill to put on this on there. I've got a group of nurses, 10, 20 of us, that's willing to help with the problem. So we need to throw money at that. I heard you say we don't have a shortage of money. I don't think it's good either to stress the police out with trying to deal with medical issues beyond their scope of skill. It's a detrimental situation. I've seen both sides of it, and it doesn't look good behind the scenes of the medical.
I appreciate you sharing that perspective. So as I mentioned, my husband's a nurse at Providence Hospital, and he shared some similar stories. And I think what makes us unique is that we do have compassion, and we do make sure that our neighbors experiencing homelessness get the services that they need. Are they perfect? No. But what I can also tell you is that my colleagues at other hospital systems and cities literally send the folks experiencing homelessness to Columbia. And I think that's what Mr. Taylor was trying to get at, is that we are dealing with the burden of all of South Carolina, frankly. I can't tell you how many times we've seen police officers or cars from Charleston or Spartanburg or Greenville come and deliver their homeless to our main street. Yet we are not getting any extra money from the state. We are not getting any recognition that our providers are essentially taking care of the whole state with limited funds. And then we're feeling immense pressure to solve this problem. So I hear you in that it is not perfect. There are a lot of different mechanisms by which we need to help our homeless, but we also need to hold our neighboring cities accountable and our state delegation accountable that we are known as a city of services, and that's amazing. I believe that we need to help those that are experiencing hardship. But that also means we need the support and the collaboration of all of these cities that are pushing their challenges to us without any sort of support along the way. So I appreciate you sharing that story.
Moving on, please, sir.
My name is Jim Morris. I'm in the K through 12 space with SC Economics. I feel like sometimes when we're focusing on the college level and we talk about workforce, the workforce, really gets developed a lot further down the line, at the high school level or middle school level. I don't necessarily feel we're being as creative right now. Everybody's being steered towards college. The requirements to graduate from high school are different in every state, and we've got 23 credits that are needed to get through. Everybody's on a track to go to college. We don't have any way to let people move into something that have no desire to go to college. We're not being very creative. We seem to have focused on graduation rates. Yeah, I get it. That is a nice thing to have, but if you want higher graduation rates, we've gotten higher ones. All you have to do is tell the teachers you're going to graduate more. And so they just funnel them through. They're not getting any smarter. Sorry. Okay, stop. I'll try to stop. But my other point about being creative at the high school level is I've heard many things that times people talk about the governor's schools. We've got some great ones. Got them over in Greenville. We've got them in Hartsville. Why can't we get a governor's school here for business and entrepreneurship? And we'd be a double-edged sword. We build some entrepreneurs here. So, and that's an on-campus 2-year at least for about 300 to 400 students. That might be a creative way to build the businesses, create them, have them here, and also do something with it. Any comments?
I just want to say I agree. And as a summer governor's school participant, my mama wouldn't let me do the full year thing. The information, the knowledge, and the experience you get in those programs is awesome. But I also agree that when I went to college, I saw so many people who were wasting their parents' money. So we do need to be more flexible and making sure people are going into a path that is for them and that gives them the ability, if it's true, I just say everyone is not meant for college. It is just so clear to me. So we do need to be more creative. I'm saying I agree with you and make sure that we have vocational and training positions, which sometimes pay even more than the jobs that people get who go through college. And I think that maybe we aren't selling those well enough. We aren't selling those alternatives well enough. So I agree with you. And hopefully we can do some things with our school district. There's a build up program that I think is super cool that teaches people in high school how to build homes. And you come out with skills and you're ready to work.
Gentleman back.
Sure. Good morning. I'm Craig Littlefield, Superintendent of Richmond One. And just want to speak to just some of those things. And I do take the point of telling your story. So Richmond One has had the third year in a row graduation rate that's higher than the state average. Actually, last year the graduation rate was higher than Green. We have CTE program. We offer all 16 pathways. We even have an internship signing day. It's like at college signing day. We have this industry here in Columbia, here in the metro area, that work with our students. We cover everything from diesel to government and so forth. So you agree, we tell our story in terms of what we do. We've been meeting with economic development folks, even in the county, city, and even some state folks, to what it is we offer and how we can build that path. Richmond One, last year, we had more students to graduate with in the Midlands with associate and associate degrees and certifications from Midlands Tech than any district in the Midlands. third lowest millage rate in terms of commitments. So if we do tell our story, now, do we have areas that we still need to move on? Oh, absolutely. I think we would all say that about any organization. Some come about students moving, well, Alabama Court closed. Gonzalez Gardens closed. We have apartments that closed. So students, parents have to move, the students are gonna go with them. So those are all those things that we deal with, and everything that the panel spoke of, whether it's homelessness, whether it's affordable housing and so forth. Public K-12 becomes a receiver of that impact and still having to move forward. So, you know, I certainly appreciate all the work that city council does, county council and all. But one here, this is about the school district, I did feel compelled to you know, there's some of these things. Visit our site at the state of the district about two weeks ago, and we addressed everything, the challenges, the strengths, what we have to offer, and how we battle with some of our schools, for example, have a 40% turnover rate in a given year, where student population changes. 40% in a given year. Is that going to impact some of the outcomes and some of the things that happen with students and families? Absolutely. It absolutely does. So those are just, again, just some of the things that we deal with, and how do we put programs and things in place to move our students forward. So tell the story, let's tell the whole story. We'll appreciate that. You can look at our state of the district address on the district's website.
One last question, if possibly we get one relative to economic development, something Mr. Taylor to answer, and then we'll adjourn. So if you're not going to ask one, I've got one to ask. So I will defer to the crowd. So go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, my question does relate to economic development, and it really is infrastructure. You know, we have seen, I guess, over the past decades that everywhere the city has invested, whether it's Gervais Street, North Main Street, Hardin Street, Main Street, we've had development follow. And I know it's expensive, and it gets more expensive every day, construction, but I just wondered what the new council's thoughts were on that, maybe to increase the level of our sidewalks and curbs and roadways and so forth, because it really is, infrastructure really does breed economic development. So I just wanted your thoughts on that.
Well, why don't we let, just for time, we'll let Mr. Taylor start there, since y'all got to cover the other two, and I'll let the two go after that. So.
Well, thanks, Matt. I mean, that's a great question. But, you know, I would tell you, we have to start with taking care of what we got. I mean, no offense to anybody, but in Finley Park, which should be our keystone deal downtown Columbia. I mean, and what we've historically done here is move from new project to new project to new project and completely ignored what we have. So, I mean, I would tell you, number one, as a city government, we need to probably prioritize our maintenance CapEx dollars. I would remind everybody that we taxed ourselves $1 billion for infrastructure. $1 billion in transportation penny tax. So if we're gonna think about sidewalks and streets, we need to ask ourselves, have we gotten what we thought we were going to get when we agreed to be taxed $1 billion? But no, I would tell you, and I said it earlier, I think prosperity and success in building follows public safety. And if every one of the areas you're talking about, you know, has a reputation for being safe, and that's where we need to go and grow in. You know, I would just kind of touch it just on one last thing on economic development, because we do have a lot going on. I mean, really, truly, I see Mike Dawson over here. You know, we don't sell our river like we ought to sell. I mean, how many people, let me ask, how many of y'all have been on an inner tube down the Congaree Road? Man, that's better than I thought. How many have been on a canoe through the national forest? I mean, these are unbelievably remarkable things that we don't do as good a job telling our story as we do. I mean, the Darla Moore School of Business, #1 public international business school in the country. We don't yell, we ought to be yelling about that from the highest building in New York and Philadelphia and Cleveland. I mean, we got the history. I mean, we got to learn to tell our story a whole lot better about what we have. And I think if we do that and we get unified as a city, and again, let's put aside special interest projects for the next 4 years and let's really work on our appearance. Let's clean up our gateways coming into Columbia where it looks beautiful when you cross a bridge to get here. Let's get the power lines downtown buried so the trees don't look like Valentine hearts with the middle cut out of them. You know what I'm saying? Let's get the litter picked up. It's inexcusable for us to have the litter on the streets that we have in our city. You know, unless, I tell everybody, I was born in the Providence Hospital. That tells you how old I am. And I can remember the whole time growing up, as you came into the city of Columbia, there was a billboard. It wasn't a big billboard, it was like 4x6. It said, "Welcome to Columbia, South Carolina, an all-American city." And it showed the pride that we had in our community. And we need to start at city council, making sure that our city assets are all beautiful. And then we set the appearance standard for everybody else. If your medians have weeds growing up in them, and your sidewalks have weeds growing up in them, I'd rather get the weeds cut on the sidewalks than put new sidewalks in. But if we make it all look good, then everybody takes pride. I mean, the biggest thing I think the three of us focused on, I know this sounds cookie, when we got there, was getting your trash picked up in front of your house. I mean, no kidding, it was 3 weeks. And let me tell you, when you got piles of trash up down the streets, and people, especially when I go to some of our more attainable and affordable neighborhoods who work their tails off all weekend to get their yard looking good, and then that trash stays out in front, it just doesn't send the right message. So, I mean, the one thing that I hope everybody leaves here today with is we got to take more pride in what we have and lift up the appearance. And let me tell you, if 2 things that I would just close with. You're walking down the street and you see litter on the sidewalks, reach down and pick it up and put it in the next trash can. And if you pass by a police officer out there, thank them for what they do. Ms. Herbert pegged it right. It's tough being a policeman with that. And they need to know that you got their back. And so just say thank you. I mean, it's that simple. I think those are probably the 2 most powerful words in the English language. And it'll mean more to those guys than you could possibly imagine. And thank you all for coming today.
Ms. Herbert?
I was going to defer to Joe. Joe did job, and I think Joe said enough. It's 9:06. But all I will say is that it's so expensive for the infrastructure, and we just did in North Main, and it takes a lot of time, and we had to find a lot of federal funding. But I think in the end, people are going to really be excited. But it took like 7 years, and the complaints. I think once the baby is out and is complete, then everyone will be happy. So I'm for them, but the process tends to be pretty painful. And I think that we have to do a better job of preparing people for the pain of those infrastructure projects. So they're not asking every year, when is the streets going to be done, when is it going to be done? And so that was just my little gripe with infrastructure.
Thank you for sharing. Dr. Bussells, if you want to finish up.
Oh, no, I'll defer. I think they covered everything.
Well, I just like to thank all of y'all. A lot of people don't realize the time commitment y'all have in jobs and what you're doing here. I have a family member that serves on a local council in the upstate, and y'all are spending, easily 15 to 20 hours, if not more, of your own personal time each week. It's not a council meeting. It's not a meeting like this. They're on phone calls. They're community meetings. It's a big sacrifice for all of them, particularly having professional careers to do this and serve. So I'd like to say thank you personally on behalf of me and the chamber for your efforts. I'd like to thank our sponsors for holding this event today. So I don't forget, I've got a cheat sheet, Bank of America, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Richmond County Library, Wells Fargo, Midlands Biz, Sign It Quick, and Sun Solutions. I'd like to thank all of y'all for coming today. Please come back to our next issues forum Tuesday, April 5th from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Thanks so much.